Hello to all of our followers and welcome to this new episode of 5 Minutes. Today we talk about comparative economics, what is it and how we can use it with our guest, Dr. Elodie Dorren, Lecturer of Economics at University College London School of Slavonic and East European Studies. Elodie, very welcome to 5 Minutes. We are very happy to have you here.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Luca. It's a pleasure to be talking to you today.
Thank you. Elodie, this interview takes inspiration from your handbook on comparative economics, actually out these days. So inevitably, my first question is, what is comparative economics?
Well, so it's an excellent question, and it's actually not an obvious question at all. So comparative economics is an umbrella term. It encompasses a lot of sub-discipline or disciplines that are related but are very different. So the main common point that they have is a point of origin, which is comparative economic systems. And so comparative economic systems was a field which was specializing in comparing capitalism and socialism, before the fall of the Berlin Wall. And when the Berlin Wall fell, comparative economic system seems suddenly obsolete. And some people assume that it was just going to disappear, but really it didn't, because there was really important lessons from, this comparative study of capitalism and socialism that really needed to be brought forward even after the fall of socialism. And so today, a lot of people are doing stuff which have some relation to what comparative economic system was, and they recognize that affiliation, even though the approaches might be very different.
Thank you. So how can we use comparative economics to understand some global events? For instance, think about the fall of the Soviet bloc that you mentioned, or the economic effects of the last financial crisis, or the rise of China as a new global economic power.
The experience of transition away from socialism and towards market-oriented economies, is really a turning point for the discipline. In the very early years of transition, there was a lot of debate about policy choices and how, which policy should be implemented in what order, what should be the appropriate pace, appropriate sequencing for policy reforms. This experience really reinforced that lesson from comparative economic system, and it really brought home, if you want, the fact that by comparing how different countries, different economic units, whatever they are, behave under certain circumstances, and trying to identify which dimension matter to explain outcomes, you could try and identify not only whether a policy is going to give you the outcome that you want, but also under which condition that policy might give you the outcome that you want.
Thank you. So does comparative economics talk only about economics, or it also looks at other social aspects?
So, I would say it's not at all only about economics. So, as I mentioned already, it's a very pluridisciplinary field. There's a recognition that history matter because history can shape institution, it can shape people beliefs, it can shape social relations, and any investigation that recognize the importance of context can only be pluridisciplinary. It can only be approached from the joint perspective of sociology, maybe anthropology, maybe psychology, history, economics. And again, if you look at the table of content of the Handbook of Comparative Economics and the list of biographies of the contributors to the handbook, you will see that there's quite a few economists, but there's also a lot of people coming from other disciplines. So, a lot of people who very explicitly, in the way they present themselves, recognize that, they get inspiration from different disciplines.
Thank you. So, last question: what can policymakers learn from comparative economic perspectives and analysis?
So I could be cheeky and say everything. In recent years, there's been some very interesting debates about policy lessons or policy relevant research and comparative economic system, because it's such an open-minded. Comparative economics, because it's such an open-minded discipline, recognize really the importance of context and have something to say about how different policies can play out in different contexts. And, putting all of this together is the best way to actually get to policy relevant advice or, policy relevant research. You need to have this pluralism of views to get to something that is truly useful for policymakers, that I think.
Thank you so much, Elodie, for this very interesting interview. We wish you all the best, and we hope to see you here again at 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Luca.